Hello everybody, welcome to Learn It. This is lecture number 2B where we are going to learn about the Early Vedic Period. The bracket that we associate to the EVP, Early Vedic Period, happens to be 1600 BC to 1000 BC. और हमने हमारे last lecture में we saw that 1500 BC is a period that we associate to Rig Veda. Now when we talk about the Rig Veda, let's learn about the lifestyle of the Aryans. The Aryans particularly led a very simple life. They lived in mud and stone huts. See, these are the images which are also called pit dwellings. They practiced community living. What is this? They practiced in small groups, and these groups were called clans. These clans, they fought with each other for supremacy. We learnt about it in the last lecture. The source that we use to recreate history of the early Vedic period particularly is the Rig Veda. Now, what exactly is the Rig Veda? Out of the 4 Vedas, which we'll learn in the later lectures, let me just give you all a brief overview. The 4 Vedas are nothing but Rig Veda. One second. The 4 Vedas happen to be Rig Veda, Atharveda, in no particular order, Samved, and the Yajurved. So, out of these 4 Vedas, the Rig Veda happens to be the ancient and oldest Veda. What does it contain? It contains a collection of events and prayers. It has 1028 hymns. What are these hymns? These are prayers and poems. Prayers and poems that are dedicated to gods and goddesses. The Rig Veda also contains 10 mandals. What are mandals? Mandals are nothing but volumes, or in simpler terms we can call them books, out of which the number one mandal and the 10th mandal are the latest additions, the recent most additions. The Rig Veda is written by a priestly class called the Hotri priests, and they have used the language that happens to be Chesht Sanskrit. Chesht is nothing but pure Sanskrit. When we talk about the Rig Veda, it was orally transmitted from one generation to the other. Let's say generation number 1 taught generation number 2 orally about the Rig Veda, and that is how it got transmitted from generation number 1 to generation number 2. And as we already saw that it is via the Rig Veda that we're going to look into the social life, the political structure, the economic background of the early Vedic Aryans. So we can also say that the Rig Veda deals with the political, economic, social and religious lives of the Aryans. Let's move forward to the polity, the political structure of the Aryans, the EVP, the polity of the early Vedic period. We say that kinship was practiced. What is the difference between kinship and kingship? We'll understand. There were 4 major key players when we talk about polity of the EVP. The first one happens to be king. King was called Rajan, who was the head of the clan. Now Rajan had 2 duties. One was to protect his clan, and the other one was preserve the cattle. You remember that the Aryans happen to be pastoral community, and cattle for them happens to be sacred. So the Rajan has 2 duties, which are to protect his clan and preserve the cattle. Now the Rajan had very limited powers. Had he had unlimited powers, we would have called it kingship, Raja Ji ka Raj, the rule of the king. But since he's practicing very limited powers, we're calling it to be kinship. Tribe happens to be equally important. Monarchy is prevalent there, but tribe is also equally important. The clan is also equally important. Now Rajan practiced polygamy. The king had multiple wives. Rajan, let's say he's the Rajan. There also is going to be a Yuvraj, who's going to be the next ruler, heir to the throne. So Rajan ka beta hi Yuvrajan. The position is hereditary in nature. The son of the king, the son of the Rajan will become the Yuvrajan. One day Yuvrajan will become the next Rajan. So that is why we say that the position happens to be hereditary. Now the second key player happens to be Purohit. And mind it that the Rig Veda talks about 2 important Purohits. Purohits are nothing but sage. We saw in our first lecture that there were two important sages. One supported King Sudas and his clan, and the other supported Dasarajana. So there were two Purohits, sage Vashishta. Let me write it down. Sage Vashishta and sage Vishwamitra. Now Vashishta was a little conservative. Sage Vashishta was a little conservative. Sage Vishwamitra was a little liberal. And it was sage Vishwamitra who wrote the Gayatri Mantra. Correct? We'll learn about Gayatri Mantra furthermore. But when we talk about Purohits, sages, they practiced unlimited powers. See, there's a dichotomy. The kings practiced limited powers, but the Purohit or sage practiced unlimited power. But there's again a confusion here. The Purohit was chosen on the wish of the king. The Purohit had unlimited powers, the king had limited powers. But it is the king who is going to choose the Purohit. And the Purohit performed sacrifices, rituals, ceremonies of the clan. But in the name of the king, again, king or Rajan, in the name of the king or Rajan. The third key player that we're going to learn about happens to be Senani. Now, who was Senani? Senani was the head of the army, commander-in-chief of the army. He waged wars and concluded peace again in the name of the Rajan. You can't do anything alone, right? So you have to do it in the name of the Rajan only, in the name of the king. He recruited soldiers also. Now, Senani performed Gavishti. Now, what is this Gavishti? 1 second. Let me explain it to you. Let's say this is clan number 1. This is clan A. This is clan B. Clan C. Clan D. All are going to have these 4 key players in their political system. So, clan A is also going to have king, Purohit, Senani and Gramani, and so is clan B, C and D. So let's say all the clans are going to have all the 4 key players A, B, C and D. I'm not going to write it for every clan, but you may just understand that all clans are going to have a Rajan, a Purohit, a Senani and a Gramani. So what happens in Gavishti is nothing but search for cow. Cow is cattle, right? And cattle is sacred to them. We also see that they fight for supremacy. Though they live in community, but they fight for supremacy. So what is going to happen is that the Gramani, who is the village headman, is... So let's say a person from the village complains to the village headman that my cow has been stolen. The village headman would go to Senani saying that, oh listen, a person from my clan is complaining that his cow has been stolen. What is the security issue with our clan? Are you not focusing on a clan? Now, Senani would now go to the Rajan or Purohit. So what happens now is, we saw that the Rajan has got 2 duties, right? To protect his clan and to preserve the cattle as well. So now what is going to happen, that the Rajan is going to issue Gavishti. Search for the cow. Where exactly is the cow? Let's say the cow has been found in clan B. Clan B would say, no, this is not your cow. The cow is in clan C, I know. Clan C would put the blame on clan D. Let's say that the cow is found in, the missing cow is found in clan C. This is the missing cow. From the clan A, it's been missing, and the person is saying that this is my cow, and the cow is residing in clan number C. So what happens is that this entire clan would now, clan A would wage a war with clan C, and whosoever wins will have the supremacy. So let's say clan A wins. Now clan C will come under clan A's control. So this was Gavishti, nothing but search for the cow just to establish supremacy. Moving on to our 4th major key player, that happens to be Gramani. Who is Gramani? Gramani is the village headman. He's a wise old man and he looked after family and local disputes. Remember that the person from the clan came to the Gramani and he told, my cow has been missing. Because he is the village headman, so the person thought that, okay, maybe Gramani could solve my issue. And it was the Gramani who took the issue to Senani, and Senani took the issue to Rajan. So the Gramani happens to take care about the local disputes in the village. Moving forward, let's look into the 4 popular assemblies. What were these assemblies that we talked about in our first lecture as well? We'll see. See, when we talk about assemblies are nothing but where people meet and greet each other. They sit with each other to discuss about something. There were 4 popular assemblies that were prevalent in the EVP. The first one happens to be Sabha. Sabha is nothing but a general assembly where people discuss about what issues are they facing, and this is presided by a group of elders. The second assembly happens to be Samiti, where this committee or this assembly selects the Yuvarajan, who is going to be the next heir to the throne. Remember, the position of the Rajan is hereditary, no? So there has to be a body that decides who is going to be the next Rajan, Yuvarajan, heir to the throne. The third and fourth happen to be popular assemblies, which are village assemblies, Vidata and Gana. And it's common sense who is going to be presiding over these assemblies. Obviously, the Raja can't preside over the village assembly. No, he has also got a reputation. Why will he come and preside over the village assemblies that are very local? So, these village assemblies are presided over by Gramani. Remember, one of the things that Gramani does is look after the local disputes. So, it is the Gramani that's going to preside over Vidata and Gana. Now, let's move forward with the economical setup of the EVP, the Early Vedic Period. See, certain things are going to be as they were in IVC. So, we will say that agriculture was practiced, followed by cattle rearing, which was further followed by domestication of animals, which was followed by animal husbandry. Irrigation was again practiced. Both Rabi and Kharif crops were grown. What were the crops that were grown? Wheat, rice, cotton, barley, millets, pea, maize, gram. Let's look into their EVP names as well. Just a minute. So, wheat was called Godoha. Rice was called Vrihi. Cotton was called Sindh-Dawn. Cotton from Sindh, from the territory of Sindh. That is why ON, cotton from the territory of Sindh. Barley was called Yawa. And millets, pea, maize, gram. When we talk about subsistence farming, what exactly is this? That they're producing enough to take care of themselves. And then there is extra also left. So what was this extra? How was this extra taken care of? This excess was traded to the nearby clans. When we talk about trade, you'll have to understand one thing, that the internal trade was practiced with different clans. Remember, there were different clans prevalent and they fought amongst themselves for supremacy. So this internal trade was also with different clans of those times. External trade was only with Babylon. What is Babylon? Persia. Now, when we talk about exports, so what did we, as in EVP people, exported? We exported food crops, Sindon, salt. What did we import? We imported gold, silver, tin. And what was the mode of exchange? We did not have any currency as such. No currency was there, correct? So, barter system was prevalent. Occupation, when we talk about economy, occupation was open to all, like we saw in IVC. And you'll have to understand one thing. The people gave voluntary tribute to the Rajan, which was called Bali. Now, Bali was collected by the Gramani. So, there are two terms here, vis and vish, which are often confused with each other. Vis is nothing but people, tribe or clan. And vish is the loyalty or tribute. So, if at all the examiner frames the question, be careful here. It is the vis that's going to give wish to the Rajan, The people are going to give their loyalty and tribute to the Rajan, correct? So when we have to conclude the economic setup, we say that the EVP people were self-sufficient. Let's now move on to the societal patterns, the society of the early Vedic period. Now we see that the society was patriarchal in nature, which is male dominated. Kulapa was the head of the family. Who was Kulapa? Kulapa was the grandfather. So he was the head of the family. We also see that the early Vedic period had 3 divisions in society. The first one happened to be priestly class, the second happened to be that of warriors, and the third one happened to be that of common people. These were open to all people and gender. These were not airtight compartments. Yes, there were divisions in the society, but these were not airtight compartments. These were open to all. Marriage was prevalent. Marriage was considered sacred and optional. Nobody forced anybody into getting married. Monogamy was practiced. One husband, one wife. Polygamy was practiced. One husband, many wives. We saw in the case of Rajan that he had many wives. Polyandry was also practiced. One wife, many husbands. When we talk about polyandry, you'll have to understand one thing, that it was not very frequent. Polyandry, we have got examples. So, Lord Maruts were always stated with Rodasi. When we talk about Aswin brothers, these are just examples. Aswin brothers were associated to be living together. They were represented as they were living together with the daughter of sun's god. So, we do have examples, but they're not very frequent. That is why we say that polyandry was practiced, but in a limited criteria, in a very limited number. The age for marriage happened to be 16 for girls and 17 for boys. Widow remarriage was compulsory. Marriage in general was optional, but widow remarriage was compulsory. And here we'll have a certain, criteria. The criteria happen to be that the widow has to remarry only the dead husband's brother. Dowry was called Stridhan at that time, which was again voluntary. When we talk about dowry and it being voluntary, you will have to understand one thing, that dowry was only given once and during the first marriage itself. We see that in the case of remarriage, the parents of the bride do not always have to repay and give the dowry or Stridhan again and again. So it was only supposed to be paid once and during the first marriage itself in the form of, one second, let me write it down here as well, in the form of cattle wealth. Untouchability was not present during those times. Slavery existed. There were very many types of slaves at that time as well, but it was duty based and it was voluntary again. One has to self-declare himself or herself as a slave. It was optional. Nobody can again force you into being a slave. One has to self-declare that, okay, I am going to be a slave from tomorrow onwards, so and so date and so time. And slaves were often purchased and sold also. We see that women slaves were preferred more than male slaves, which is why we have to conclude that since the occupation was open to all, the women could also practice a lot of occupations. The position of women was fairly okayish, which is why we conclude that the society was egalitarian in nature. But we see that the society was patriarchal in nature as well. We see that there are social divisions as well. That is why we say that the society is egalitarian, but with traces of social differentiation. And this is how we conclude this part, which makes us to move to the fifth and last part of lecture number 2B, that happens to be the religious setup, the religion of the early Vedic period. See, Rig Veda mentions 33 gods. One second. Rig Veda mentions 33 gods. Out of these 33 gods, the chief god happens to be Lord Indra, for whom 250 hymns has been dedicated in the Rig Veda itself. There are other gods as well. Agni, the god of fire. Varun, the god of water. Rudra, the destroyer of evils or god of animals. Vishnu, the protector. Pushan, the god of cattle. Brahma, he was also called, one second, what's wrong? He was also called Prajapati, often called the creator. Now, when we talk about Maruts, they are the gods of storm. There's another god as well, that's Lord Som, who is often referred to the Lord of Plants. And we'll see that in the Rig Veda, we see that in the Rig Veda, Lord Som resides at Hemvant mountains. Hemvant mountains. We regard these Hemvant mountains to be Himalayas, present day Himalayas. And from the plant Som, we get Somaras, which is used and served in the intoxicated drinks as well. You will see that the Rig Veda contains 10 mandals, and the 9th mandal completely is dedicated to Lord Som. There were several important goddesses as well. Some of them happen to be Usha, the goddess of dawn, Aditi, the goddess of dusk, Savitri, the goddess of learning and light as well. Now, one thing very important that we have to note here is that in the Rig Veda, the famous Gayatri mantra that we talked about is believed to be dedicated to Lord Goddess Savitri. And again, a question to you all, we have already discussed this. It was, the Gayatri mantra was written by whom? It was either sage number 1 or sage number 2. Who has written the Gayatri mantra? You'll all let me know down in the comment section. Now, when we further move ahead, we see that no image worship was found during the EVP. Gods were worshipped, but they were worshipped in their original form. Idol worship also existed during those times. And we see an example here in the form of Linga. You'll have to understand one thing, that the EVP people worship for two things precisely. Number one being Praja, that is children, tribe, clan, and yes, what is sacred to them? Pashu, cattle. So these were the two things that they precisely worshipped for. Sabianism and animism continued. There are certain mentions, I'm really sorry. There are certain mentions also in the Rig Veda. We see that horse called Asva is mentioned for 215 times in the Rig Veda. Cow, Gau, 176 times. Bull has been mentioned for 170 times. We see that so many gods and goddesses were worshipped together. There was Sabianism as well, animism as well. And there were so many people peacefully residing. They fought, but they fought for supremacy. They didn't fight for religious purposes. That is why we say that the EVP society was secular in nature. And this is how we conclude this section as well as this lecture also. Now, in the next lecture, that is 2C, we'll learn about again the economic patterns, the political setup, the society, the religious patterns, the religious setups of the later Vedic period. The later Vedic period, where the bracket, you all know what the bracket is. So that is all from our side for the day. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day ahead.